Alright so guys, welcome back to another video. Fat tire there, obviously. I was able to sneak out with the rain and all that. So it's, plus here, I'm not doing a hood tour episode today because, I don't have enough time. Tomorrow I probably won't have enough time either. Sunday I might, and the reason why I say that is, because that's when the campers coming out. So, I think we're gonna stop at Grandma after. We're gonna have Mom and Keegan help me, and then, or help me and Dad, and then. I think we're going to drop, probably take one vehicle and then drop them off at home, and cover it and run everything home, drop them off, and then me and Dad are probably going to grab the hitch. And then probably go back and get it and then pull it if we don't do it right away. Because I got Sunday off because of Easter, which I'm surprised we have off. Surprised that we're closed. I should say. I'm surprised that we're closed on Easter. So now I got to get... Because I got to go be in for 2 today. I got to close with Autumn, which she's kind of fun. She's fun to work with. When you get to joke around with her, but when she's being serious, it's like, okay, now I gotta be, Lily, I was like that too. There's times, she's fun to work with, but then it just was always most of the time serious, which is no big deal. It's just, she's more serious than joking around, especially right at the end. But, I can't complain. Some people take their job serious and some take, they fuck around, I'm okay with taking your job serious. It's, a good thing. Then that just shows that hey, I don't fuck around, I don't really fuck around and fucking seagulls, retarded birds. It's a good thing when you take your job serious, because then that shows that, hey, you're trying to be responsible and productive at the same fucking time. I take my job serious, but not enough, because it's so fucking drama filled. And Bob, one of the new guys, made it obvious last night that it was bad. The drama's bad. So, speaking of which, I could have fucking stupid. I could have gone out to dance today because the kids are off because of Easter. So, I think I told you guys what I don't remember. I had so much fucking happen since I fixed it. So I found out that creaking noise that the bike's got. It's a fucking loose crank arm. Because I could pull the crank out of this bike. I can at least pull the crank out the bottom bracket, which is your bearings that allows bottom bracket holds the crank in the bike where it needs to be, but it also helps it turn. Because they're just a couple of fucking bearings. Older bikes, they're almost like a semi-cartridge bearing, and then newer bikes are like a cartridge bearing. And Dad's like, your bearing bottom, bearings for your crank is different than mine. I said, yeah, it's because your I told him I don't remember if I told him, but the spindle for his crank is like integrated into the bottom bracket, so you pull, so you spin one bearing out slides out, you know, then you pull the other side out and then it goes with that fucking bearing. And then, or mine, I could just undo like 3 fucking bolts or 2 pinch bolts in the compression cap, which I now have to fucking replace because it's plastic and it's decided to cam out like a piece of shit because people who make bikes don't realize that fucking doing cheap fucking parts and plastic on bikes ain't gonna fucking, you know, last. You know, at least do an aluminum one. You know, because then if it fucking cams out, you know, do an aluminum one with the thread pitch on there so then you know what one you need. You know, if you have to replace it. You know, so I ordered a new one. So then I'm going to take, you know, when it comes in, I might, which comes in on Sunday. You know, I might, you know, Monday after, you know, yeah, Monday, while mom and dad and all that are at work, I might pull that crank off and grease that that end of the spindle. And because the crank that's in my bike is a 2-piece. Well, technically 4 if you count, you know, being it that you can remove the chain rings. But but it's just the crank itself, it's 2 because, you know, you can pull the crank arm off and then the spindle stays with the other crank arm with the drive side. And then so I might just try to pull that fucking crank arm out or off, and then you know, grease up that side a little bit and Loctite everything. You know, pull the bolts out of the spindle or out of the arm, and you know, then I'll Loctite. You know, I'll realign everything so it sits pretty good, and also it's, you know, even and perfect, and all that crap. So I don't know. I'll figure it out because I'm gonna probably work on it on Monday anyway. So you know, because then at that point I might pull. You know, I might pull the thread size out on that. And then all that. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out because, you know, those bolts. I'm slowly changing bolts over. So I think the next ones that I'm gonna do, if I don't do the crank, would be like the caliper, like hardware. So I don't know. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna end the video here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.